Hi friends, welcome to today's video where we will be looking at 12 of my most favorite DIYs from 2021, and we're going to start with my favorite Valentine Gnome. And I'm just covering the tin can with a sock that I've had on hand, and I'm just going to take some twine and I'm going to tie the top of the can where the sock meets the top of the can, I guess. I'm just going to tie the twine up there, tie it in a knot, and cut off the excess sock. Next, I'm going to take one of those mop pads from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to kind of measure where I want to put the beard, and then I'm going to cut just a portion of this mop off. This thing was super messy, so if you're going to recreate this, just make sure you have a trash can on hand for all the little parts after you start cutting it. I'm going to use my hot glue and just attach this beard to the top of the can. The original inspiration for this gnome came from a video that I saw on Instagram by Olivia's Romantic Home. I did find the actual video on YouTube, and I will link that video down in my description box so you can see the gnome that she came up with as well. So next I'm going to take this Dollar Tree sock and I'm just going to cut off the top. I'm going to turn the sock inside out, and then I'm going to take a piece of twine and I'm going to tie it into a knot around the top of where I cut off the sock, and then I'm going to flip it back around to the right side out so that I have made a hat, but you cannot see the twine on the outside. Once I've completed that, I'm just going to take some batting and I'm going to stuff the batting into the top of the hat so it gives it some shape, and then I'm just going to put the hat down on top of the beard. I'm ready to add a pom-pom to the top of our hat, and I got this pom-pom on a pom-pom garland from the Dollar General, and I'm just going to glue the pom-pom just to the top of the hat. Next, I'm going to take a bead that I got from Amazon, and I'm just going to glue that kind of into the middle of my beard to give him his nose. So he is looking super cute up to this point. I am going to take some felt that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to kind of roll it up. It was just a rough cut, nothing special, and then I'm just going to take some hot glue once I've rolled it up and glue that down together. I am making the arms for our gnome. Once I have that glued, I'm just going to fold it in half and cut it in the middle so that I have two arms. Once I have my two arms, I'm going to take the end of one of the pieces and I'm going to put some glue on it and fold it over so that I have kind of a clean edge there. And then I'm going to take that portion that I just glued and I'm going to glue that part to the can kind of up by his beard. I'm going to do the same step on the other side of the gnome as well. Once I have that completed on both sides, I'm just going to bring his arms kind of to the front of the can, and then I'm going to glue his arms together. Once I have his arms glued together, I'm going to take one of these like wooden hearts that came from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to glue it into the middle where his hands are coming together. The fun thing about this gnome is you could totally customize it to anything that you liked. I just picked out some socks that I liked and then kind of went with the embellishments that I liked, like the heart. So it would totally be up to you whatever you would want to put on him. That's kind of the fun part about making gnomes. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to follow those same steps for the arms, and I'm going to make him two legs. I didn't do anything fancy here. I just kind of folded it over like I did when I attached the arm to the can, and then I'm just going to glue that bottom piece onto the bottom of the can, and I repeat that step for both legs. So now we're ready for some feet, and I decided to just take some larger hearts similar to the one that he's holding, and I'm just going to glue his legs onto the hearts so it looks like they're his feet. And I go ahead and repeat that step on both sides. Same thing I did with the arms where I folded it over and then I glue that on and glue it to the other part of the felt so they are one continuous piece. Here he is. I think he is so adorable. I couldn't stop looking at him once he was sitting on my shelf. Number 2 is my most favorite bunny sign I made for Easter. Start out with one of these styrofoam bunnies from the Dollar Tree. I decided to go ahead and cut this bunny in half, so I'm going to have two pieces. I'm using a paring knife, which actually ends up not being the best knife to use for this styrofoam cutout. It is really tight in there, and I have to use a lot of elbow grease to get this cut in half. I shied away from a sharper edge knife just because I didn't want it to tear up the styrofoam, but definitely a sharper knife than this paring knife would be a good choice. So once I get it cut in half, I'm going to take this sign that I got at the Dollar Tree. They have these all the time. They're usually by the checkout. And I'm just going to go ahead and give it one coat of Waverly White chalk paint. Once I have my sign covered, I then go back with my cashew colored chalk paint from Waverly, and I just kind of blend it in while the paint is still wet until I get the desired look I'm going for. This sign also had some glitter on the front of it, so I just took some sandpaper and kind of got all that glitter off before I started painting. So make sure you clean it up a little bit before you cover it with something else. Next, I'm going to put some Mod Podge over what I painted, and I'm going to use one of these napkins from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to Mod Podge this napkin onto the sign. It does end up taking 2 napkins because the bottom has to be covered by a separate napkin. So then I take the cutout that I cut in half, and I start with the white Waverly chalk paint, then the cashew chalk paint, and then I finish up with the elephant chalk paint. I just kind of blend those in as well because I'm going for a concrete look. So once I'm finished with that, I'm just going to go ahead and add some hot glue to the back of this bunny, and I'm going to glue him down on the sign. Just as a note here, I have a really hot glue gun, and so part of my glue gun melted part of the styrofoam of this bunny. So if you're recreating this, make sure you have it on a lower temp. Unfortunately, my glue gun does not have that option. So if you have just like a lower temp glue gun, definitely use that on the styrofoam. So then I'm taking this farmhouse ribbon that I got at Dollar Tree, one of my favorites. I try to pick it up whenever I see it. Unfortunately, my Dollar Tree doesn't carry it all that often. So when I can get my hands on it, I definitely buy a couple of spools of it. Once I have it tied into the shoelace bow, I'm just going to glue that onto the bunny's neck, and then this project is complete. I did go ahead and cover part of the napkin with some white Waverly chalk paint before I glued the bunny down, just to give it more of a distressed look. Number 3 is a vase with one of my very favorite bunny picks of the year. For this DIY, I took a vase that I got at the Dollar Tree and some of the jute rope from the Dollar Tree. It took me about 3 packs, and I went around the entire vase with the jute rope. Next, I took one of those bunny garlands from the Dollar Tree and an old book that I had that actually came from the Dollar Tree as well, and I just tore out some pages, and I'm tracing around this bunny garland around the book pages. Now, the bunny's ears are slightly bigger than the page, so I just kind of tweaked it as I was tracing around the ears at the top. I cut out 6 of the book pages, and then I'm going to glue 2 of them each together because I'm going to stick a skewer in between the book pages to give it a pick for the flower arrangement that we're making. Once I get the skewer in there, I'm real careful as I poke it through there because I don't want it to poke any of the book pages. So once I get it into the desired length I want, I do go ahead and take some of my hot glue and glue around the wood pick part to the paper to give it a more permanent hold rather than the glue stick. Next, I'm going to create the bunny's tails using this twine that I got at the Dollar Tree, and they now have colored twine, and it's really neat. Like, they have all kinds of different colors, purple, yellow, they have solid colors too, like just solid purple, gray, so there's a lot of different choices that you can get in this twine variety. So I just used the purple and white patterned one to make some tails on each one of my bunny cutouts. To make the tail, I just go ahead and put a dab of the hot glue on my paper, and then I start twirling it around the hot glue. I add a little bit of glue here and there, not a whole bunch because I don't want it to come through in the tail until I get the desired size of the circle I want, and then I go ahead and trim it and glue it down to the rest of the twine. Next, I decide to go around the edges of my bunny cutouts, so I go ahead and get some yellow, pink, and blue chalk paint, and I just lightly go around the edges of the entire cutout in each color. Off camera, I did go ahead and put some floral foam into my vase, and I went ahead and stuck the bunnies into the floral foam, and now I'm ready to just put my florals in and do some arranging. These florals came from the Dollar Tree. They were last year's florals from a different project, but I'm using some greenery and some lavender and lilacs that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. And so I just, randomly go around and put my picks in till I get the desired look, and then this project is complete. Number 4 is a bird vase that was super easy to make and oh so adorable. For this DIY, we're going to take one of those metal planters from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just taking some white Waverly chalk paint and going over the twine that's attached to it up there. Then I got these bird stencils, and I'm just going to take out the bird stencils, and I'm going to just randomly place the bird stencils all around my metal bucket. I'm just going to stencil on there with the white Waverly chalk paint again, and I just choose several different birds in several different sizes and styles to go around the entire planter. I do go ahead and spray my planter with some matte acrylic spray after I get it all painted on there, just to make sure that if the birds were to get wet, they wouldn't come off the planter. It did kind of add this kind of weird, like distressing look on it, but I actually really liked it after I got it on there, so that's an optional step for you. You could always put Mod Podge over it too to make sure it seals it in. Once I have the birds on there, then I add my floral foam, which came from the Dollar Tree, and these butterfly stickers. I'm going to make a really easy pick for my planter. I should have bought 2 packages of the same butterflies. I bought separate ones, and since I'm putting it back to back, it would have been nice if they had matched. So if you're going to recreate this, buy 2 packages of the same butterflies. As I was shopping online at the Dollar Tree website, I did see these stickers on there, so if you aren't able to find them in your store, these are definitely something that you could pick up on the Dollar Tree website. Now I'm going to stick my pick into the floral foam, and it's pretty hard because I did put the really stiff foam in there. Once I get it in there, I'm ready to add my greenery. This is boxwood greenery from Walmart, and I'm just adding it all around so that you can't see any of the inside of the planter. The cream colored pick is just something I had left over in my stash, and I thought it would look kind of cool for a contrast. It's definitely optional. It's super cute with just the greenery. Once that's completed, then this project is complete. Number 5 is a garden wreath, and I totally plan to make these again this year. For today's wreath, we're going to take a 16-inch wreath form from the Dollar Tree, and I'm taking this burlap ribbon that also came from the Dollar Tree. I like to take mine off of the spools and wrap them around paper. I store them in these plastic bins, which takes up a lot less space for me. So you can't always tell that they came from the Dollar Tree, but this one did come from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to start by wrapping it just a small amount around part of the wreath, and then I'm going to glue that in place, and then I'm going to wrap this ribbon all around the entire wreath form. I think it takes me about 3 of the spools of ribbon to cover this entire wreath. So this is the very end of the ribbon spool, and I decided to go ahead and just use this as part of the hanger. So I put it to my desired length to hang it, and then I use my hot glue just to glue it in place. I glue it down here, then I wrap around that bottom piece up towards the top, and then I cut it off right at the base of the wreath, and then I glue that part to the wreath form as well. So this wreath is full of layers, and so the first layer that we're going to work on is these gloves. I picked these up at the Dollar Tree, and all I'm going to do is take the wrist part of the gloves and I'm going to fold it over the wreath form, and then I'm going to hot glue those wrist parts down to the wreath. So I start with that bottom one, I hot glue that one to the wreath form, and then the top glove I glue to the other glove and then you're going to see here in a second I forget to glue it to the front of the wreath, but you're going to want to glue the hand part to the front of the wreath form as well. So originally I tried to zip tie each of these separately, and then that did not work out, and so I clipped those off, and then I just decided to take one zip tie and zip tie the shovel and the little rake together, and then I took another zip tie and I zip tied that grouping together onto the wreath form. As you can see, I'm gluing the front of the gloves down to the wreath, and now we're ready to assemble the rest of the wreath. So I took my seed packets that I picked up at Dollar General. You can definitely get some at Dollar Tree. Mine were just happened to be sold out. I did not take the seeds out of these packets. You could definitely do that though. Put them in baggies, label them so you know what you're planting later. If you're someone like me who tears open the packets and then keeps the packet with it in the baggie for later, you could definitely use those packets as well. If I was going to use recycled packets, I would cut off the top and glue them together just to give it a more finished look. So as I am lying these around, I'm just kind of deciding I don't want two of the same ones next to each other, and I want kind of the title showing, so I'm just sporadically picking out of the ones I bought. And then I do add a couple more on top of each other just to give it a little bit more dimension. Then I go ahead and take my hot glue and I glue those all down to the wreath form. So I'm using my Easy Bow Maker to make a bow today. I'm using this red burlap ribbon that I got at the Dollar Tree, along with this polka dot ribbon that also came from the Dollar Tree. I took some of the white grosgrain ribbon and wrapped it around the middle because I did zip tie this together and I didn't want the zip tie to show. Once I have that all together, I go ahead and dovetail the ends, and then I secure the bow onto the wreath with another zip tie. I did go ahead and tie a shoelace bow that I end up putting in the middle of this bow because I felt like it was missing something. You guys let me know, what would you have put in the middle of this bow? I tried to put some seed packets there, but I felt like they were too big, and so I just was struggling with what might have looked cute in the middle of that bow. So let me know down in the comments below what you would have put there. Once I have this bow secured and it's fluffed out, then this project is complete. Number 6 is an Americana Wreath, and definitely one of my all-time favorite DIYs. So for this project, I'm using a wreath that I picked up at Goodwill for 99 cents, and I'm just going to take all the things off of it. I just want to use the grapevine wreath section. So then I took one of these Dollar Tree giant flags that they have. These are the ones that can either go on your car or the side of your house. And I did that same technique where I painted it with the Antique Waverly wax. I am telling you guys, this is amazing. I went back and picked up 3 more flags. I have so many ideas for these, and if you are an Americana decorator, this is a must-have DIY. And it's so simple and easy, and you can do so many things with these flags. Guys, this is one of the best DIYs I think I've ever made. I love it, and I just am so excited to decorate it with it. So all I'm doing here is scrunching the flag together, gluing it on the end, and then I flip the other side of the flag over. I'm going to go ahead and glue that onto the grapevine wreath, and then I do that just to assemble all of the pieces down on top of each other. Once I have that side glued on, then the part that's hanging off over to the other side, I flip that over and I put some more glue onto the grapevine wreath and glue it there. And then I'm going to go ahead and tuck the tail part of the flag into itself. Originally I was going to cut it, and then I just decided, nah, I'm going to tuck it in I don't know why I'm not going to disassemble this, but anyway, if you wanted to cut it off, you could. I just decided to go ahead and tuck it in. So once I have that part assembled, I take some raffia that also came from the Dollar Tree, and I go ahead and cut part of it off. And then I'm going to use some more tags that I got from the Heidi Sambo free printable. Don't miss out on that free printable. Make sure you head over to her website and get it. But I'm going to go ahead, I did that same process, I aged it. I'm going to glue those into the middle, and then I decided that my raffia is a little bit too new looking, so I go ahead and take some antique Waverly wax, paint that on to my raffia, and then this project is complete. Number 7 is a watermelon wreath, and definitely my most unique DIY of the year. For this project, we're going to start out with a 12-inch wreath form from the Dollar Tree, and I'm using some wire cutters, and I'm just going to cut this wreath form in half. Next, we're going to take some mesh that came from the Dollar Tree. You can find these colors in their regular crafting area, so they should be available all year. I'm just using a regular ruler. I measure my mesh out to be about 5 inches, and then I cut it and I just put it into a grouping like you can see above the ruler. I'm going to do this for the entire bundle. Some people use rotary cutters to get a straight line. I don't really worry about it. I use a rolling technique to do my wreaths, and so it really doesn't matter if they're even or not on the ends. Next, I'm going to take some pipe cleaners. These were just some that I had left over. If you want to have all matching colors, you can. You can actually see it when you're done with the wreath, so to me it doesn't ever really matter, but I'm just going to bend it in half and cut it in half. I only use half of the pipe cleaner per bundle. Some people use a full pipe cleaner. It kind of depends on, your mobility, and if you have, problems with your hands when you get to the back to tie it off. So to start the wreath, I'm just going to take 3 of the pieces of the green mesh, and I'm going to roll them up into a bundle, and then I'm going to secure them with the pipe cleaner. As you can see off to the left, I have some ribbon. I decided not to use the green ribbon in the wreath itself. I do use it towards the end along with that polka dot ribbon, but we are going to use the white ribbon and the buffalo check ribbon. So after every third bundle on our wreath form, I'm going to put a group of ribbon, and I'm just putting it together just like the bundles. So I take a pipe cleaner and I tie it off in the middle, and then after every third bundle, like I said, I put a grouping of the ribbon. I'm going to do that on the bottom 2 rings of the wreath form. So here it is all completed. It's about 9 bundles of green mesh per little section of the wreath, and then it would be 3 groups of the ribbon. Then I'm going to do that. I did the exact same thing with the pink mesh that I did with the green mesh, and I'm using this polka dotted black ribbon for the inside of the watermelon. I'm going to be doing the top 2 sections, I guess, of the wreath the exact same way. So I'm rolling 3 pieces of the mesh up and then grouping it together using a pipe cleaner and then attaching it to the wreath form. I ended up using 3 packages of the green and only 2 packages of the pink because it's a little bit less of a semicircle towards the top of the wreath. So I'm just doing the same thing, grouping them in groups of 3, attaching it to the wreath form. After every third grouping, I put a bundle of the black and white polka dotted ribbon with a black ribbon on top to kind of replicate the seeds, and then I'm going to do that along the whole top section. So for the bow for this wreath, I'm deciding to do a crisscross bow. I've never done that for a wreath before, so I thought I would check this out since this is kind of an unconventional shape of a wreath anyway. So I'm just laying the ribbons on top of each other. I used a piece of twine and tied it off, and then I'm using some of my buffalo check ribbon to go around the middle. Then I took a full pipe cleaner, glued it underneath part of the ribbon that's in the middle there. I hot glued it, and then I'm going to fish that through part of the wreath and onto the back of the wreath form and tie it off in the back so it's secure. So once I get it all tied off in the back, I'm just going to fluff it out a little bit, and I just kind of manipulate it just so that I have it as fluffy as I can get. For the center of my bow, I'm going to glue a button. I've been holding on to this button for a while till I could find something to go with it, and it just fits perfect here in the middle of my bow. So I'm going to glue that on, and then I take a pink button and I glue that on top of the green button, and then this project is complete. Number 8 is a pumpkin wood sign, and it was definitely my viewer choice of the year. So for this project, I'm going to be using 3 of these kind of the medium large sign, I don't know, the medium long sign from Easter, and I'm just removing the back parts of it, and then I also removed like the foam pieces that were on the other side as well. And I'm just going to use my favorite wood glue, which is the Titebond 3. I use this all the time. I love it. It works amazing. So I glue all 3 of the pieces together, and I just go ahead and give it some time to kind of dry, and then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next part. The only thing that I would suggest if you're going to remake this is to maybe sand the top of the sign. I didn't even notice, you're going to see when I use my spray paint, that there was like some rough spots at the top until I started using the spray paint. But I mean, I love how it turned out. So if you don't mind, then don't worry about it. But if you're someone who's like, ooh, then make sure you sand. So then I'm just taking my brown spray paint and I'm going to spray paint this entire piece. Where I had the wood glue, I probably could have waited a little bit longer for it to dry. But where there is some glue there, it picks up the spray paint a little differently. But that's okay because we're going to cover it up and you're not even going to be able to notice. So I'm going to take that felt pumpkin and I'm going to use my gold spray paint, and I'm going to go over the top of this foam or felt piece with my gold spray paint. So I go around the pumpkin in between where the little slits are, and then I go ahead and do the rest of the wood piece as well with the gold piece, so that the only part of the brown that's showing is our pumpkin. So I'm ready to make a bow, and I'm going to use messy bows today. I just thought they were fitting for this project. So I took a few different types of ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to lay them down. So I thought it would be good to have a patterned ribbon, then a solid ribbon, and then another type of patterned ribbon. So I'm using 2 types of plaid ribbon here, and at first I was like, I don't know, you know, if plaid on plaid, but these 2 were enough of a different color that I thought that they actually worked together. So I'm using my twine. I'm just going to tie it. It kind of all, you know, goes together because these are big pieces of ribbon, but that's okay because we're going to fluff it out and all will be well. So I'm just going to tie it in a knot, trim off my twine, and then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to kind of fluff. So these are a little bit different fluffing than they are when you do like an actual bow, because you're not fluffing out the like middle bow pieces. We're just going to kind of fluff out just the ribbon itself. And then once I get it to look like a desired look I'm going for, then I'm going to go ahead and dovetail the ends, because that's going to give us a really easy high-end look. So I do every piece of ribbon, and then I'm ready to attach it. So my original thought was to attach it up at the top of the sign, but then I decided no, that I actually really liked it being tied around where the stem of the pumpkin is. So that's where I decided to glue it. I'm going to go ahead and make my own little bundle here of Dollar Tree greenery goodies. I also did this in another video, and I'll post that up here, where I made some wreaths and I made my own bundles. I like making my own bundles because I can put as many as I want in there, and I can put what I want in there, and I can make the stem shorter, which is kind of the purpose of why I always make my own bundle. So I'm just going to add some hot glue here to the sign. I'm going to go ahead, lay my bundle down, then I'm going to make sure that's attached pretty well. Then I glue my ribbon on top of that, and then to kind of finish it off, I'm just taking some of the excess pieces of those pumpkins where the leaves are, and I'm going to glue that kind of down to the middle of the bow, and I'm going to add a couple more pumpkins there, and then this project is complete. Number 9 is a ghost sign, and it was my most viewed reel on Instagram. So this little guy ends up being one of my favorite pieces of this whole video. It's a gift bag from the Dollar Tree, and this gift bag came in a set of 2. We're also going to use the other bag that came with it. All I did was take a Dollar Tree sign that's out for fall right now. I cut out the bag, and I'm going to attach it to the front of this sign. I'm going to reattach that back into the piece that it came from, and then this project is complete. It's super easy. It's definitely farmhouse, and this ghost is absolutely adorable. Number 10 is a snowman wreath, and it was my first sale at the craft fair this year. To make this wreath, I picked up one of the tinsel snowmen that they have at the Dollar Tree. These are plastic wreath forms, and they have these notches that go around the outside of the plastic part. The tinsel is wrapped around each one of the notches, and so it's super easy to unravel this. We're just going to take all the tinsel off all 3 pieces of the snowman, and we'll be left with a plastic wreath form. So I'm using this silver deco mesh that I got at the Dollar Tree. I wanted this to be a full Dollar Tree project, so I did not go out and buy any deco mesh. This was in my stash, but they do put out the silver ones at Christmas time. If you wanted to use black, you could definitely use black for the hat as well. So I'm using my cutting mat, and I'm measuring this deco mesh to be about 6 inches long. I'm going to cut this full roll of deco mesh, and then I'm going to cut another 7 white deco mesh rolls this same exact way. So once I get all my deco mesh cut, I'm going to be rolling them like a burrito style, and I take 3 of the pieces and I roll them, and then I make them into a bundle. I'm going to use a pipe cleaner to attach them together. Now, when I use a metal wreath form, it really doesn't matter what color of pipe cleaner I use, because you can't see it once you get all the deco mesh in there. I did feel like this one you could see a few pieces of my pipe cleaner, so definitely pick up a package of the white pipe cleaners to do the white part, and a package of silver pipe cleaners to do the hat if you're doing it silver, or black if you're doing it black. But we're just going to be wrapping these bundles around the outside of this plastic frame. So there is a circular piece that goes on the inside, and then like a scalloped looking piece that goes on the outside. I wrapped it around one on one side and one on the other, and then I just secured it into the back. I am going to wrap the deco mesh bundles all around the outside. So this bottom circle took about 2 rolls of the deco mesh, and then it takes a little bit less as you go up the snowman's body. Altogether, I used 7 rolls of the deco mesh. I had a few pieces left over that I went ahead and went back into the middle of some of them and added them there. So if you want more in the middle of these wreath forms, then you would need to use 8 packages. Once I get it on there, I fluff it out, and then I just go ahead and do that same method for all 3 of the circles. So once I get all the white pieces on, I'm ready to do the hat, and I'm just basically doing the same thing. There is a little bit less of the plastic wreath form up there, so I just go down in a straight line for the hat against the white part, and I'm just wrapping it around there, and then I go around the entire outside to make the hat. So for his scarf, I'm just using some ribbon I had in my stash. I am pretty sure this came from the Dollar Tree. If it didn't come from the Dollar Tree, it came from Dollar General. So I just tie it around like a scarf, and then I make a bow just by folding it over and cinching it together. And I tie that off with a pipe cleaner, and then I'm attaching that pipe cleaner into the plastic wreath form. So I did use a full-sized pipe cleaner for this part, just because I wasn't sure how much of the deco mesh I would need to go through, but I go ahead and I secure that into the scarf to make it look like it is part of the scarf, and then I'm going to tie that in the back. And then I'm going to take some more of these giant bells that I had, and I glue one to the middle of the ribbon, and then I fluff it out. I do go ahead and dovetail the ends as well. And then I'm going to add 3 more of the giant bells to the body to look like the buttons. You could add a face here if you wanted to. I chose not to. I liked the look of it just the way it was, but a face would also be just as adorable. And then here is a look at the final project. My most inspired DIY this year was this Christmas tree advent calendar. So this project is a total Dollar Tree project. I'm going to be using 24 of these wooden boxes that you can pick up at the Crafter Square area. So I'm going to take 4 of the boxes, and I'm going to use my Antique Waverly wax, and I'm going to cover all of those. So just as a reminder here, and I guess I didn't think about it when I started the project, but there are 2 boxes to each box because these boxes have an insert, and you do need to do both boxes. So it does end up being 48 boxes that we end up painting, which does make for a little bit of a tedious project. So once I cover those 4 boxes and the inserts, then I'm going to do all of the other 20 boxes green, both the outside and the inside. So this whole project was inspired by this gift bag that I had seen at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut out each of the little squares from the gift bag. Then I'm going to trace around the insert of the box to give myself a square, a little bit smaller square, I guess, from the gift bag. Once I have all of those cut out, then I'm going to use this spray glue that I got at the Dollar Tree. I love this glue. It works so much better than Mod Podge. My one complaint was it got a little bit clogged as I was using it, and I did end up using Mod Podge on like the last few boxes I had. If I can find a bigger bottle of this, I will link it down in the description box. But you're just going to glue each of the little squares onto each box. And remember, it's I guess up to you, but I faced the little cutout on the box to the back. You're going to cover it up anyway, so if you wanted to, you could cover the front of the box with your paper. I'm using these little square wood pieces that also came from the Dollar Tree for my handle, and I just glued those kind of right into the middle of the box. It ends up being like right over the nose of the character in each of the picture. So I went ahead and did that for all 24 boxes, and we're ready to assemble them together. I'm using some wood glue that I picked up at the Dollar Tree along with some hot glue just to give it a more like quick hold and then a more permanent hold, because this is something I would like to keep for a long time. So I just give it a really great amount of glue, and then I'm going to glue them together. So here was the other kind of discovery I made as I started to glue these together. Not all of the boxes are quite the same size. So as I'm gluing them, some of them are a little bit bigger, some of them there is a small gap once my whole tree gets assembled. So I'm okay with it. but if that, if that's something that might bother you once you make it, just make sure that when you're lining up your boxes that they all match. So as I cut out all the characters, I tried to kind of stagger them. And when I was doing the voiceover for the video, I realized that my Santas are going kind of in a diagonal line, but I didn't notice it when I was putting it together. So you can, play around with it. You'll see here in a second, play around with some of the placement of the boxes just to give it a more like rounded area. On the gift bag, there are a few of these squares that have wording on them. I couldn't make the wording work on the box because some of it, like the important parts, were missing, so I just chose to do the characters' faces. And the reindeer here in my boxes is not Rudolph because he does not have a red nose. So my secret word today was comet, and the reindeer here in my boxes is comet. So don't forget to write that down. Secret word, comet. So after I get them all glued together, I'm going to take these stickers that I picked up at Hobby Lobby and attach them to the front for my Advent days. And here is the final look of the project. I absolutely adore this. I cannot believe that this was made pretty much with all Dollar Tree supplies, and let me know what you think about it. Number 12 is my favorite gingerbread house from the gingerbread house video. So I went ahead and just used a Christmas red acrylic paint, and I covered the whole house with that color. I think it's totally a beautiful red color. Kind of reminds me of a candy apple. And then I'm using my puff paint again, and I'm going to go over the windows, the snowy part of the ledge. And then it's a little hard to tell here, but in the roof, I only outlined the roof and left the kind of cream color underneath, as well as the windows. And I really loved how that turned out. This reminded me of a barn. So I went traditional here. I used these little wreaths that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I know that they sell something similar at the Dollar Tree, and I just glued one on each window, and I'm going to glue the little trees on the sides where the tree cutouts are. And then I decided for a kind of a fun twist on the lights, I found these little pine cone picks at Hobby Lobby, and they come in like a whole bunch. I had to use some wire cutters to cut them apart, but I'm going to go ahead and hang those along the ledge and around the roof as where the lights would be hanging. I kind of felt like this gave it a more lodge look because, again, this reminded me of a barn. But I definitely love traditional Christmas colors, and so here is the final look of this project. Oh my goodness, it's so fun to do a year-end review and pick out all my favorite projects from the year. Let me know if your favorite projects of the year made it to this video. As always, wherever you are in your journey is a perfect place to start, and I will see you in my next video.